Hey guys, let's talk dog parks. Now, I actually end up talking about dog parks quite a bit, but usually I end up sounding like the Grinch who stole Christmas. People get upset with me. I've had people call me really bad names because of how I talk about dog parks, because they think I'm trying to like kill the fun that dogs have and all that type of stuff like that, and I'm really not. I'm not a buzzkill. I'm not trying to hurt your dog's fun or your dog's socialization or things like that. What I'm trying to do is keep dogs safe. And so that's why I talk out against dog parks. Now, I think the reason that people call me names about it oftentimes is because, frankly, I'm online, and I can't always say like everything I want to say online. And so as a result, sometimes only half the message gets across and I say, hey, be careful about dog parks and blah, blah, blah. But I decided to make a video here so I could get more into detail, and then I'll just link people back to this video whenever they've got questions about dog parks. Because it's really my opinion that a dog park is almost the worst place that you could take a dog. Granted, this is my opinion. I haven't thought about every single place on earth you could take a dog, but like as a whole, if we're talking in general, a dog park is about the worst place that you could take a dog. And people say, well, what about socialization? They need this, this, and this. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why it's such a bad place. Socialization is not simply exposure. A lot of people think that, to socialize a dog, you expose a dog to things, to people, to dogs, to this, and this. And I guess that might, qualify as socialization, but if that qualifies as socialization, then let's talk about what good or great socialization is. Good or great socialization is the act of exposure with structure and control. And when I say control, what I mean is controlling outcomes. When we want to control outcomes, we want to have the dog meet new things, experience new things, but the outcome we want the dog to have is an outcome where the dog has a positive experience, right? The dog ends up like, hey, this was great, this was fun, I want to do this again, right? That would be great, good to great socialization. That's what we want to have with our dogs. What happens at a dog park and why I don't like it? You don't have control over what happens. Almost none. In fact, talk to anyone that's gone to a dog park for a while, and they'll tell you about the shouting matches and the fights that the owners get into, let alone the dogs, but the owners get into because your dog was humping my dog. They're just playing. Your dog did this to my dog. I didn't see it. Your dog did this. No, your dog did that. Like all these things that, if you go to any dog park for any period of time, you'll see that the dog park culture amongst the people is about as sour as you can find in most dog parks. Usually there's a group of people who are in the in-group and then the other people who are, they just come from time to time. And the in-group doesn't like that group and it gets a little bit crazy. But nevertheless, like I say, you don't have control over what happens. You don't have control over the outcome. You're putting your dog in with other dogs and you have no idea if they're vaccinated. You have no idea if they're nice. I mean, people all the time are like, well, why would somebody bring a non-nice dog to a dog park? Because they have no clue that their dog isn't nice. Because they have no clue, they're not thinking, they're not good dog owners. They're oblivious to what their dog is. And so I've been to, over the years, dog parks hundreds of times. I hang out at the outskirts. I use them as distraction training. I don't use them as socialization. I use them for distractions. And I don't know that I've ever been in a dog park for any length of time and not seen a fight break out amongst the dogs. I've seen a few human fights break out. Those are the ones that make me laugh. The dog ones make me sad. Because what's happening is, I remember one that made me the saddest. This person brought this 4-month-old husky to the dog park. And I love dogs, but dogs are jerks at times. And so 2 or 3 dogs see a weak puppy over there. They hone in on him. Boom, they go for him. And they it's not like a full-on attack, but it's the kind where they get on top of, rah, 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 and this dog is screaming his head off, and he looks like he's 4 months old. I don't know exactly, but the person's grabbing this 4-month-old dog, and while other dogs are jumping up at him while they're trying to carry him out, and the puppy's screaming the whole way out. That puppy's life for the next 12 or 13 years will be negatively and perhaps unbelievably negatively affected from that one experience. I can't tell you how many times we've had a client that had one bad experience. We're not talking about a series, one. And now their dog forever has some big fear issues. And you can work through fear issues, to a degree, and you can help a dog get better. But that dog will carry that experience forever. And I'm saying that in kind of a harsh way because this is what we're doing to our dogs when we take them to a dog park. We're putting them in a position where that is likely, not that like, oh, that's something that sometimes happens, but it's likely that your dog will have some sort of experience that he or she doesn't know how to deal with, and now carries that with them as how they think about dogs, how they think about people, how they think about new experiences, and things like that. As a company, we work with hundreds of aggression cases per year. We're kind of a larger company. We've got 8 trainers. We work with, we've got 10 now because we opened up 2 new locations. Anyways, so 10 trainers. We work with hundreds of aggression cases per year. Probably 60%, I probably should track this, but probably 60%, as we're getting a history on the dog, find that the dog had 1 or more negative experiences at the dog park, and that's when issues started with the dog. And so, granted, that's the subset that I'm looking at, right, is hundreds of dogs. But the subset gets bigger when we talk about hundreds of dogs that I talk to who don't become clients, because not everyone I talk to becomes a client. But I will talk with, so over the past 13 years, I have talked with, I thought about it the other day, I think I've had over 10,000 conversations where I'm presenting our training to somebody. So over 10,000 of these conversations. And out of those, probably 6,000 were aggression related. And out of those, most of them had some sort of dog park at the core. That's what dog parks do. Dog parks create fear. Dog parks create anxiety. Dog parks create problems because we're putting these dogs in these scenarios where they get beat up, bullied on, terrified, and then we keep sending them back. Hey, go get terrified again. Hey, go get terrified again. So what's going to happen? A dog with some presence is going to start being aggressive quickly. A dog that doesn't have presence is going to ramp up to it, but is like, I got to do something about this. I'm scared every time I come here. And frankly, you've got a predator who's got knives in his mouth. That's what a dog is. It's a predator walking around with knives in his or her mouth. And they're going to say, time to do what predators do, time to start getting aggressive. And so now, plenty of dogs go to dog parks their whole life and don't end up with aggression. So, people are going to tell me that. They're going to say, you're wrong. I went to a dog park with my dog for 10 years and he's fine. Well, to that I say, George Burns smoked cigars until he was like 110 years old or however he was, and never got, cancer from smoking cigars. That happens. Outliers happen where like, hey, this is unexpected. We took the dog to some place that he shouldn't have been for years and nothing bad ever happened. That's unexpected. It's more expected that somebody smokes for 70 years and they get cancer. That's just what happens when you do a dangerous behavior for that long. And so some people can avoid it, but that does not mean that it's suddenly a good behavior to do because somebody else avoided, or maybe you are the one that avoided some problems for years. Frankly, dog parks are just a bad place to be. It's not a natural way to socialize. When you think about how dogs in the wild or whatever, because maybe you're trying to determine, is this natural? When dogs, canines, whether we're talking coyotes or wolves or things like that, when they're in groups, they don't just go play with dogs, canines from other groups. They don't. It's not like that there's anything natural about being like, hey, dog, you don't know any of those dogs. Have a good day. There's nothing natural about that. The dog doesn't know how to do that. And frankly, when half of the other dogs have, no manners, are reactive themselves, it's just, I call it a disease-ridden fight club, is really what a dog park is. And so like I say, it ends up being a really bad place to take your dog because of all these aggression issues. Now, aggression, fear, anxiety. On the other end, there's plenty of dogs that go and don't get those issues, but they develop other issues. A lot of them do. And a lot of them, the issues that they develop are things like they see another dog and they freak out. So oftentimes you'll see dogs that you walk in the neighborhood and they see a dog down the street and they're like, ah, ah, ah. They're like whining and screaming at the top of their lungs because they want to get to that dog. Why? Because they see every dog as this play thing. Dogs aren't anything to be respected. We're going to play, and we're going to play hard, and we're going to play rough, and we're going to have a good time because it's fun for that dog. That dog down there, we don't know if it is, but all this dog has been conditioned to do is you see a dog, you play your heart out. And that's what you're supposed to do. And that's not as damaging usually as dogs with aggression, anxiety, fear, etc. Usually. But for a lot of these dogs, it's pretty darn damaging because they shouldn't see other dogs as merely playthings. They shouldn't see a dog and be like, oh my gosh, I have to get to that dog. That's not an appropriate way to see other dogs. What's appropriate? What's appropriate is how you interact with people. So for example, when you see somebody at the grocery store, it is actually inappropriate for you to go up to them and try to play with them. It really is. And this is easy to test. Go do it today. Go up to somebody in the grocery store, try to play with them. Any which way, just like tag you're it, break out a deck of cards. Go try to play with them. It's not appropriate in society to just walk up to people and try to play with them. But dogs aren't people. I know, but we live in a society, we live in a domesticated society, and so when your dog sees other dogs, he should see them the way that you see other people. When you're at the bank, you don't need to play with the person standing next to you in the line. You need to be decent to them. You need to be kind to them, polite to them. You need to say, excuse me, thank you, you're welcome, that type of stuff. You need to be just a good citizen, a polite person. That's what you need to do. Maybe on Saturday mornings you play basketball. Then you should be playful. Maybe you're going to go out fishing with your buddies. Then you should be playful. Maybe it's girls' night out and you guys are, watching movies and doing whatever happens on girls' night out. Then you should be playful. It's cocktail night. Then you should be playful. Like there's plenty of times where you should be playful, but most of the time your socialization with other humans is just about being a decent human. And you don't have to interact, and any interaction that you do have is usually just a polite, hey, nice to see you. Or, oh, excuse me because you're in the grocery store, or would you mind handing me that because you're over there? And that's what socialization should be. If you saw every person as a plaything, you would have like the worst manners, you would have no friends. And these dogs that they have no control because the only way they're ever around dogs is play, they freak other dogs out because they see other dogs and they're like, rah, and they just want to go play, and it's really bad manners, and it's a big problem. So you've got one end where the dog is crazy wild and way too excited. You've got the other end where the dog is now freaked out, fearful, and anxious, and you've got everything in between to where, maybe it's this issue here, but it's a lesser amount, or it's this issue here, it's a lesser amount. But you've got this whole spectrum of problems that come directly from the dog park. And so why would you do it? There's no, why would you do it? And so the why is that people say, oh, well, my dog needs exercise and my dog needs friends. So let's examine that. Does your dog need friends? He's got you. Does he need dog friends? No. I mean, could he have them? Sure. It's totally fine to have dog friends. And it's totally fine to get your dog to play, to play with some neighborhood dogs. It's totally fine to like set up little play dates. It's totally fine to like have friends or family dogs get together. But these are dogs that These are situations that you can control. That's how their play session should go. If you're putting them into a play session where you have no control, it might go fantastic, or it might turn into aggression and a lifetime of fear that unfortunately you've asked your dog to have. Like, hey, here, have a lifetime of fear. So anyways, I know that sounds harsh, and I'm intentionally kind of making it harsh, not to make anybody feel bad. I don't want people to feel bad. I want people to just, understand, like, this is not the place for dogs. And if you've done it in the past, okay, just don't do it anymore. And if there's damage because of it, just try to fix it through training as best you can. But there's no reason to go because the dog doesn't need it. If you want the dog to have it, then create play groups, then do some work there to create the right types of groups that your dog should be with, that your dog meshes with. Your dog shouldn't be you do this with your kids, right? Like, you don't let your kids hang out with the kids dealing dope on the corner. Hopefully, no one's dealing dope on the corner. But you know what I mean. You don't let your kids go like, go hang out with like the worst elements. Why would you do the same thing with your dogs? And so don't let that happen with your dogs. So the question comes up, well, what should we do? If we can't do, dog parks, well, what should we do? Like I say, play groups, training, exercise, off-leash train your dog so that you can take your dog places where he can run around off-leash, because if, you want your dog to have that, things like that. So off-leash training, play groups, regular training, and then just have a mental shift of what your dog needs. Like I say, so many people think that their dog needs playtime with other dogs. There is no need for that. This is a domesticated creature. There is no need, there's no draw, there's no pull for your dog sitting at home being like, oh, I wish I was playing with other dogs. There might be a draw for your dog at home being like, I wish I was doing something else if you're not giving your dog the things that he needs mentally and physically. But that something else doesn't have to be playing with dogs. There's no, like, as long as your dog is fine and normal and social, like, he could sometimes play or never play and lead just as happy a life as long as you're giving, you know, resources and fulfillment in other areas of that dog's life. But that's the alternative. The alternative is everything from no play and just, you know, plenty of great activities with you and your family and stuff like that, where you're playing and you're giving the dog everything he needs, to some play, you know, with your neighborhood dogs, to maybe more play. Maybe you've got like a daycare that does a really good job. Some daycares are just as bad as dog parks, but there's plenty of daycares that do a good job of like managing things so that the dog can actually be in groups that are helpful and playful and things like that. So there's ways, like if you're really wanting your dog because you see your dog having fun and you're like, I want him to have that fun, there's ways to do that. Just don't use the dog park for it, because the dog park is just the quickest way to create damage that could be lifelong. If you're one of these owners, here's our spectrum, right? We've got crazy wild dogs here. We've got crazy anxious aggressive dogs here. If you're one of the dog owners that's gone to dog parks and your dog exists on a different spectrum, somewhere over there, if your dog exists over there, good for you. And I mean that. I don't mean that in like a snide way. Good for you that you were able to avoid it. Good for George Burns for not getting, you know, mouth cancer from smoking cigars for 70 years. Good for anybody that can do something dangerous and not get that negative thing to happen. I have no idea what the percentages are. I don't know, like, out of 100 dogs, how many dogs are going to have issues, but I do know that your dog could. Very likely could. It's not like a wild 1 in a million chance that you take your dog to a dog park and something bad happens, because that would be silly, right? Like, it's a 1 in a million chance, so we better avoid everything. That's not what this is about. Your dog has a very good chance of having very negative experiences at the dog park. A very good chance. And so, do you chance it because you want him to get out some energy? Or do you figure out different ways to get out some energy? Do you chance it because you want him to have some buddies? Or do you put in a little bit extra work and figure out how to get him some buddies? That's really what the question comes down to, because there is no need for the dog park. There's no real benefit. There's only potential danger that exists at the dog park. I know that's super harsh. Don't get angry at me. You know, don't be upset with me. It's just the reality. And I think you could talk with most dog trainers and find very similar things. I know some dog trainers kind of like, well, it depends on the dog park. And they're right. Like, there are some dog parks that have a better culture than other dog parks. So I'm open enough to understand that. But at the same, you know, and there are some places, like especially in Salt Lake, you know, there's Tanner, you know, where it's not like a dog park, you know, there's a bunch of dogs and you can weave your way around, but it's not like an enclosed thing. So there's like outliers here, which are different, that sometimes are, you know, just totally great and fine. But I'm talking dog parks, like fenced in area with, you know, who knows what dogs are coming, no reason to do it, no actual benefit that you can't get somewhere else, and only a whole lot of potential danger. Don't do it, please. And if you do it, we're happy to help you. No, that sounds awful, right? But no, like I say, we love working with dogs and helping them work through the challenges that they've come across in these dog parks. But at the same time, I really, you know, I've spent years now warning people, and a lot of people, you know, are starting to, you know, because I'm not the only one. There's tons of dog trainers talking about, like, be careful about this. These are the dangers. These are the dangers. And you can find a ton of articles and you can find a ton of videos of dog fights and happening at dog parks. And so I'm not like a lone guy screaming in the forest here. There's a lot of us that are saying, don't go to dog parks. They really are just bad for dogs. And so that's my spiel. If you need help, we're happy to help, like totally judgment-free help. If you've gone to a dog park, there is no blame of like, you did a bad thing, how dare you? But if you understand this and then you go to a dog park, I might give you a little bit of a hard time because, hey, why'd you do it? Why'd you risk it? But yeah, if you're coming to this and you're like, oh, well, shoot, I didn't even know that. That's, you know, not your fault. Like, just time to fix it. Time to help, you know, time to get your dog some help that he or she needs. And there's plenty of help out there. There's lots of like behavior modification that can be done to help dogs work through fear, aggression, anxiety challenges. But what a big part of the solution is training and then don't go back to the place that gave them the fear in the first place. So, make sense? Let us know if we can help you out.